You're watching ASOTUCon 2024, presented in collaboration with Reynolds and Gubagoo.
Thanks to our studio partner FullThrottle.ai and our panel partner Clarivoy for making this panel happen.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started in this room, and I'm sure people will trickle in, but thank you all for joining us in the cookieless phenomenon and the death of cookies and the world as we know it coming to an end, and whatever panel title that you want to actually attribute to this. We'll try and not be too doom and gloom, but give some solutions. My name is Kyle. If you don't know me, I wear a flat brim. I'll introduce these guys real quick. This is Nathan Hollenbeck, DG VP of Marketing. Yep. We've got Chris Benvey. I don't know your title at McGovern.
I'm the Director of Marketing and Pre-Owned Operations.
Oh, look at you, fancy. See, maybe we'll get some used cars out of you for a second here. And then we've got Steve White, CEO, founder of Clarivoy. So we are going to be talking today a lot about some stuff that I think, honestly, in the conversation about advertising came really hard and heavy about 2 years ago, when Google first decided to announce that they were going to join the cookieless party. And then as Google does, they've pushed back things like 50 times. So nobody's been talking about it. And so I'm excited to talk about it a little bit more, and specifically a little bit more broadly than just Google cookies dying. So we'll get into that in just a second. Actually, the other thing that I want to ask the room, and like Chris and I are really hoping that this lands. Before ASOTUCon, in the last week, was there by chance anybody that saw a video advertisement in a connected TV environment for ASOTUCon? Did anybody in this room see that? Ah, dang it. I said Chris, but Steve, sorry. We missed it, but we'll get to why that was going to be important. You know,
not connected, but I saw some stuff online, like digitally, but it wasn't connected TV.
I mean, we'll get to why that may have been the case. So, cool. What I want to start with is before we get too far, I'd love to bounce it to you, Steve, and just let's start with a few definitions. Yeah. One, let's define cookies and what they really are, and the difference between, like, what is a first-party cookie, what is a third-party cookie, and why is this rest in peace third-party cookies on the screen right now?
Yeah. So I think one interesting thing I don't think people realize is that Safari, the Apple, actually killed third-party cookies a long time ago. Does anyone know the year that Apple deprecated third-party cookies? Very good.
This guy.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing is most people don't realize that since 2017, basically, you have not been able to retarget people, because the third-party cookie, as we kind of, and if you're like the cookie monster, if it's no cookie, no retargeting. And so I think that's the simplest way to think about it from a third-party cookie perspective. So when someone visits your website, there are two different kinds of cookies that are set. There's a first-party cookie and a third-party cookie. The first-party cookie is, not getting blocked. It is designed for, saving login information, preferences. It's used for personalization. It's also part of like Google Analytics. So Google Analytics sets a first-party cookie. But then there's a third-party cookie. Ironically, Google Analytics, like other analytics platforms, set third-party cookies as well. We set a first-party cookie, and we also set a third-party cookie. And so what's happening is, Apple is using the cookie as leverage to go after its competitors, because they don't really make a whole lot of money on desktop type of advertising. And so they're using that as a vehicle to go after Facebook and go after Google. So I think that at a high level is kind of the difference between a first party and a third party cookie. So yeah, so first party cookie gets set when you visit the website, and it's the third party cookie that's responsible for following you around the internet. So that cookie stays the same every time you visit a website. That cookie is responsible for that retargeting ad.
Did everybody eat dessert so that no one's hungry yet, right? Okay. It's a really great education because I think one of the misnomers, and especially like, and you guys are ahead of the curve in a lot of what you're doing in marketing, but one of the misnomers, especially back in 2017 and then further in like 2021, 2022, when Google kind of started this re-push as well, was, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to market again, right? And so maybe speak to that as like, maybe going through it, like what were your emotions on like, oh my goodness, I need to research whether or not I'm going to be able to market things again, and coming out on the other side realizing like, okay, there's a difference in this and what I can and can't do based on the new normal of browser interaction.
Yeah, I think, as a tactic in marketing, retargeting was one of the big ones, right? It was the low-hanging fruit. It was, how do I bring these people that have been shopping on my website back over the course of a 90-day buying cycle that they typically go through? And so the idea of that going away was pretty scary. And we kind of thought maybe before we knew about identity resolution that we were going to be held to more contextual ads, right? Like, how do we be on these marketplaces or like Car and Drive or Road and Track, places where people are doing research where we don't necessarily know who they are, but that might be an audience that we want to be in front of. And then as we got more into the realm of identity resolution and understanding, not only was this a better route for us to go because it gave us more attribution data and other pieces, but it got rid of a lot of the fraud and waste that you might have found if you actually looked at like your agency's placements report on where your ads are actually being shown on the different channels and stuff like that. So for us, it was being able to now resolve an identity down to a household and device IDs and things like that. Now we know that this is an actual person that we're advertising to and not having to worry about wasted media spend in digital.
It's an interesting difference because you actually, what you're saying is like, I moved from kind of like thinking that I was doing great because I had all these opportunities out in front of me, but actually I then, because I was forced to like find the new normal, I was forced to actually get better on the other side of it.
You kind of started to identify like, okay, how much waste is actually out there anyways? And like that's what we've really done with Clarivoy is, all right, how much money are we wasting as a whole? So now that we knew we were going to have to start making changes and making better decisions on who our partners were, Clarivoy was super helpful with that for us as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'd like to define another thing real quick, if you can, Steve, for us, because you've said identity resolution a couple times, and I said it. When we're talking about resolving identities across the internet, and specifically when we get to like first-party data, which is where we're resolving a lot of those identities, what does that actually mean practically for a dealer?
Yeah, so pragmatically, what it means is basically you're taking, your name, postal, phone, and then you're basically connecting that to different device IDs. So you're enriching your first-party data with different device IDs and connecting all of those together so that you can run more holistic campaigns in terms of being able to do addressable campaigns to different devices that are representative of that individual consumer.
That's it. Really well said. I was going to ask you a follow-on question halfway through that, and then you nailed the rest of my question. So once we recognize the difference and we lean in on kind of a first-party strategy that has a resolved identity, what's the next step? Like, where do you go from there? You have all of this data now at your fingertips. You recognize waste. How is that educating your new media spend, like where you're placing dollars and how you're attributing those dollars to business outcomes?
Yeah, I think once you've identified someone like that's been shopping on your website, or if you're a dealer group and you have multiple websites and you see the cross-shopping behavior, I mean, now you're able to put the right ad in front of the right person. We don't really care at this point what website you're on or what type of media you're consuming. And so now you get into the world of programmatic, where I can put a display ad, digital audio, digital video, connected TV within your household, and keep top of mind as you're going through, again, this 90-day buying cycle. So I think that's been hugely helpful. I think the other thing that with the cookie, when we tried to do attribution data with cookies, you were only really seeing once someone left your website, you were just kind of seeing like the downstream. You weren't seeing anything upstream. And so with the technology that we're utilizing with Clarivoy, we're now able to see like all of the shopping behavior beforehand that comes down to an actual sale, and see the multi-touch attribution model, which has been fantastic. And we've got a snapshot of what that looks like that we'll share later. So,
you said like I can go target a specific shopper, Chris. Back in the day, 2-3 years ago, right, or maybe a little bit longer, it was like you knew who you were sending direct mail to, and you knew who you were emailing because you had their you knew you were sending it somewhere, and someone was getting it. Whether or not it was the right person with the right car, we still had some question marks, right? But those seem to be the most definitive ways to target a real person, right? It seems like what we're actually moving to, even though we're deprecating all of these third-party cookies, we're actually moving to these other digital mediums being almost as accurate as email and direct mail. How are you experiencing that, and what has that changed as far as your marketing?
Well, I mean, that's really why we partnered with Clarivoy, was to make sure we can have that data, and also partner with other companies like Dealer.com and some others to make sure that we're not being wasteful. Really, that's really what it comes down to. I keep saying the word wasteful. I feel like we were spending so much money over and over and over again on just spraying and praying with our advertising, and now with Clarivoy, we're not having to do that.
And you're how many rooftops?
30, soon to be 31.
How many, any, let's see, larger than 5 stores in here? Larger than 10? Yeah, so a good amount of like dealer groups in here. Yeah, so it's like, I think for both.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, my new thing, I think programmatic and CTV, that's like the new email. From an email marketing perspective, because of its ability to do addressable. And one of the things that I always encourage our clients is to seek out those addressable environments, those authenticated audiences. So you've got, of course, Facebook, you've got the logged in user, you've got Amazon, you've got Effective, which I think offers tremendous value because, they know the IP address of every consumer, definitively. And then you've got, of course, you can onboard your first-party data into the trade desk, which I think is huge, being able to do those addressable campaigns. It's just the amount, it's such a small amount of money when you think about being able to send a CTV ad to one of your particular customers. It's like 4 cents. If you calculated a $40 CPM or $50 CPM, that's 5 cents for a TV ad. It's like, come on.
That's kind of ridiculous because you know the pinpointed person and where you want to deliver it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of email, you were mentioning we were talking earlier that the cookies aren't the only things dying when it comes to the ability to track a customer. Talk a little about what we were talking about with email and why there's a danger there actually happening.
Yeah, so the next phase of Apple's privacy is to remove UTM string tagging on links in their email. So if any of your customers use the native iPhone mail app, you're going to have the ability for them to opt out of you being able to track that and seeing the effectiveness of your email marketing campaigns. So,
which is a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we do about that?
Yeah. Well, I think if you do have identity resolution, you should be able to still see a lot of the data that you want to see from that individual and follow that behavior over the course of time. So I think you will still get to see a lot of the data that you want to see if you have identity resolution as part of your strategy.
Yeah, and I think some of the other solutions is to be able to take like the click logs that you get from your email provider and then leveraging the identity resolution that you're doing on the website and then linking those two together.
Real quick, we're about halfway through. I just want to mention, If you've got questions that are coming up that I'm not asking, hit the app. I've got it pulled up, so feel free to just jump in there, ask questions. About the last 5 minutes, I'll make sure and jump in there if you guys have questions, okay? The next thing that I want to talk about is once we kind of resolve all of this, you know, one of the things that you were talking about is like, all of these platforms, right, are giving us audiences, and some of them are purchased audiences, some of them are on-platform audiences that are assumed to be exhibiting purchase behavior. Actually, my buddy Ben, I was talking about him, he's always like, you know, if you give Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, $1 and ask him to go find one person who's interested in a car, chances are Mark Zuckerberg could be like, that person, they're interested in buying a car, right? There's enough signals to tell that person. But when you give them $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, on that $15,000 one, they're probably gonna be like, well, this guy searched for some bike wheels about a month ago. Bikes have wheels, cars have wheels. Looks like this person might be interested in a car. You get a car ad thrown up on that. How do you turn this into, and what audience strategies are you implementing that are way more defined now because of some of the new opportunities?
Yeah. I think we look at it from sort of in-market audiences from additional partners, but also like just starting with the tactic of the remarketing side of things. And so now we're able to really go and take like when I think about building campaigns back in the day, it was like I had to go into Google Analytics, build an audience for people who shopped for Mazdas, and then I had to go into the CRM, and then I had to go and I had to, you know, create that audience and send that thing out. Like now we're getting so much more effective on being able to see like cross-shopping behavior. I can do branded messaging now from DG because you shop for multiple brands within our organization. We're so much more effective at being able to put the right message in front of the right person. And so when we build out these campaigns now, having to build it in one place in a CDP and then execute on these strategies, we're able to run so many more campaigns than we were in the past because there was so much setup work that was involved before. So we've really done a lot on the first party side, and now that we feel like we've really got that dialed in, now the goal is how do we work with our other partners, like the marketplaces, to get in-market audience data in as well. And because our first party data only takes us so far, right? It's great to be able to talk to those people that we already know, but there are people that are in market that we've never seen or talked to before. And so I think that's the next step for us, is really leveraging the in-market data as well.
Yeah, Chris, when you know, one thing that Nathan was just mentioning is just this fact that, I mean, you're a very regionally based dealer group, and so there's a ton of like inner competition almost for the same customer. Like, how are you solving that?
We were actually talking about that. So we have 4 Hyundai dealerships, soon to be a 5th, within like a 50-mile circle of Boston. So right now we're building out a couple different campaigns targeting EV owners, mainly Tesla owners, because we have way too many EVs on the ground. And it's amazing, like when Epsilon, who we're using for mail, I'm looking at the list and I'm like, guys, we're going to be targeting the same person from 3 different dealerships. So, you know, looking at that and trying to figure out, okay, like how much waste in the past have we done by targeting the same person over and over and over again from multiple different dealerships? So, you know, being able to figure out, as we've been speaking about up here, being able to figure out which person to target for their closest dealership is going to make us more efficient overall. So, but it happens a lot. We have 4 Hyundai dealerships all within 50 miles, 3 Ford dealerships, 3 Jeep dealerships. So again, we're so centralized that we do end up cannibalizing ourselves in that respect.
Yeah. So solving for it right now, not all the way there.
We're not. I know we're not. I'm the first person to admit that. Is that, you know, we've probably listened to some of the wrong partners in the past, and we're getting to a point now where we're really weeding through a lot of those things. So
yeah, that's awesome. I have a follow-on question for one of those that I want to ask in a minute, but before I get to that, there's this difference between like the authenticated audience question that we were kind of talking about is like, okay, actually, Amal was talking about it this morning, that we're moving to basically a logged-in internet, right? That the majority of users interacting with any site will be logged in at some level, right? Whether or not they're authenticated because of identity resolution or some sort of first-party cookie, or they're actually logged in, identified via an Amazon or Google or Facebook login. How does that actually extend the opportunity for identity resolution and making sure that these people get into our audiences?
Yeah, I think the key, go back a slide here, just kind of visually, like some of the things that you have to do when you're onboarding your first party audiences is you have to enrich it with these different types of identifiers. So you've got, as it's on the screen there, Trade Desk, Ramp ID, CTV ID, Block Graph ID, encrypted emails. All those are the currency by which those login environments you can transact against. So that is kind of the key so that you're no longer reliant upon cookies to be able to target those people. And so, it really speaks to the importance of getting your first party data organized first and foremost. Then, working with a partner that can enrich those identities for you. One of the things that we do with Nathan is when he's onboarded his data with us, is we will actually enrich his first party data, and we will send what we call identity envelopes to like the Trade Desk, which is additional identifiers that represent that particular person. So we may have one email of one of Nathan's customers, but we'll add like 3-4 more emails to it, a phone number, a postal address, etc.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think one thing that, as we're talking about identity resolution, the thing that I don't hear a ton of, and this is probably a good question to go back and ask your agency, is the match rates on identity resolution, right? Because you're right. So, I mean, you could have maybe a 30% match rate on your database. And so now you have this big gaping hole of 70% of your database that you don't know if you're talking to or not. And so finding people who can get you the 80, 90% match rates is going to be crucial to making sure that you're covering as much of your database as possible.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Nathan. I think there's the match rate of the identity graph, but then also the match rate of the ad platform itself. And so that's where you're going to get boost in match rates in the various different ad platforms. So good point.
I want to get to this question because I think it's important here. You touched on it a little bit, but when you look at all the first party data that you have at your hand, both within your purchase or lead data as well as website visitor data, how much data and budget is necessary if you're doing all of those first party to attribute to like conquest or net new audience acquisition or third party audience acquisition, if you have all of those things in line, and maybe can you talk a little bit about like what maybe your budget splits are for both of you on how you attribute that?
Yeah, I think we were spending a tremendous amount of money in general marketing beforehand, and that was just to talk to the 1 to 2% of the market at any given time that's actually in market for a car, and so there was 98% waste that was in there. I mean, there's something to be said about people, considering DGDG as part of their shopping process, right? And knowing that brand name. But when you're doing that, we're buying small zones, right? And so that can get expensive, each zone that you add to try and cover whatever geographic area that you want. Now that we know which households that we're talking to, we were able to save $2.5 million in advertising across the group within a year. And then on top of that, we were able to open the geography. So now we target all of Northern California instead of maybe Santa Clara County, which is the southern side of San Francisco Bay Area. So you kind of are able to, by whittling it down to the people that you know to be in market and the people that you know are actual people, right? You're able to really open up your targeting quite a bit, which is great.
Yeah, to Nathan's point, it was that spray and pray advertising model where it was like, all right, well, we're in the Boston market, so we're gonna, hit as many people as possible with your general advertising. And once we partnered with Clairvoyant, we started to see what was working and what wasn't working. At that point, we were an 8-store group. That was 4 years ago, and I was able to cut out about $200,000 a month. Now we're a 30-store group, working off the same philosophy as we adopted when we started working with
Clairvoyant. So if you just scale that you've already done, it's millions that you'd be blowing.
Of dollars, where now we're spending money in the places that are actually helping us sell cars, right? And as we continue to move forward with Clarivoy and we start doing more data-related things with them, we're going to get even that much better. But it's unbelievable for me to look and see what some agencies are selling dealer clients with, no match back, no attribution, and just hoping that they believe them. And for any dealers in the room, like if you're just listening to what your agency is saying, 50% of it is wrong, if not more. So if you think about it, if you could save 50% of your ad budgets every single month, just
none of the agencies in the room.
Nope,
none of them. They're all doing it great.
Yep, no, they're doing a great job. That's fine. But my point is that we were able to save a ton of money, both from what our agency was doing, sometimes with third-party advertising, with a lot of the different big websites out there, as well as from a traditional media standpoint. And we've only taken off. I mean, our business has grown rapidly. That's why we've been able to grow to 30 dealerships essentially in 7 years. So.
I think also it becomes an accountability mechanism. You're able to hold vendors accountable.
And every vendor that has ever seen me pull up a Clarivoy report, if it's someone who knows they're doing a good job, they're excited to see it. Right? And then they want to see how they're doing versus their competitors. Right? Yep. But if it's someone who might be a little bit smoke and mirrors, like we've had some interesting AI companies we've worked with that there's totally smoke and mirrors. But it's they don't want to see it, they don't want to believe it, they want to say all kinds of things that are not exactly positive about what you all are doing. But again, we've saved literally millions of dollars over the last few years from an ad waste perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at reports that show impressions, views, view rate, and things of that nature, I mean, you're missing all of the downstream metrics from beyond that and figuring out what is it actually impacting your cost per sale, and then the metric that we obsess on is net cost per sale after co-op reimbursement. So
yeah. In talking about fraud and bots and things like that, like it's not just the agency that's doing that. It's also the ad platforms that have a lot of fraud. And so it's not like you have to blame the agencies. It's that this gets to hold the platforms, the ad delivery platforms accountable as well, right?
But to that point too, you would hope, any agency or company that you're working with would be vetting that for you. That's generally what you're paying them for. So.
Yeah. Right. When we started it, like, everybody's version of like Cookieless is extremely scary. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to. It's almost like because we were forced into this world, we've actually gotten better than we were before. Like we've leapfrogged, which is really, really cool. I want to honor. There's like a ton of well, just so you know, if you have a question in there. These guys, maybe you can jump in the app and like respond to these questions afterwards, because I got like 7 or 8 questions here. Because we saw a lot of dealer groups, I'd love to just get both of your strategies as we wrap up on. Both of you have talked about like a little bit more of a global strategy for ad delivery, both digitally and physically. This is a little bit off topic, but because it is a little bit related, give us like how that strategy is evolving and what you're seeing as the results of that, because it is related but a little bit adjacent.
Yeah, I think just in general, we have always treated DGDG, because similarly, like all of our stores are within Northern California and the bulk are in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've always treated DGDG as a tier 2 strategy. This is the regional play. If you're cross-shopping multiple brands, we want you to know that like you can shop those brands at DGDG, and like we don't want to lose you to one of our competitors. And so I think we have this strategy of like a global branding piece that we splice into all of the audiences. We have one rolled up audience for everyone, and then we have specific audiences at the individual store level. And so when you see some of like the click trails, which we'll pull up for you, you might see that like someone started at our Capital Ford dealership because they bought a car there previously, but now we're all of a sudden sending them Mazda messages because they're now on the Mazda website and they're cross-shopping. And we'll send ads from both until they decide which one that they want to buy, but we're constantly staying top of mind. And I think the other piece that we tie into that is our creative strategy. Every DGDG spot, whether it's a store spot or a group spot, they all look, sound, and feel the same. So even if there are like co-op constraints of what we can and can't say about DGDG, you're still going to hear Sean Dahlgren's voice as the voiceover. You're still going to hear our music bed. We take rolling footage of our cars with the DGDG license plate on it to get around co-op that way. I hope no OEMs are in the audience right now. Yeah, none of mine at least. But I mean, there's ways that we are just making sure that you're always seeing and hearing a DGDG message and that you know it's DGDG behind it.
And I think for us, we're still a relatively young automotive group. Like I said, end of this year will be 8 years, and we're 30 stores, mostly concentrated in the Boston area, but also a few in New Hampshire, a few on Long Island, and we're expanding a little further south next month. But for us, it's getting our name out there and making sure that we are a little bit different from what you guys are, is that we are still doing a good amount of traditional media, whether it be radio or TV, because we want to be a household name with so many brands in such a small area. But we've been able to target, whether it be with CTV or even, I lost my train of thought, with CTV and a few other places, to make sure that no matter where they're consuming media, they're seeing the McGovern brand. And all of our dealerships have a similar logo, everything is similar coloring. We have a couple partners on the radio in the Boston market that are constantly driving our cars, hyping us up on social media, tagging us, so on and so forth. So for us, it's very much about becoming a household brand, as there's one or two other big brands in the area that we're trying to make not so household.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because of this target, even though typically you'd be like, if I want to run a brand commercial, I got to run in the Super Bowl. That's an exaggeration, but it's like just hit everybody, but you can actually run a brand play at a very localized personal level and be extremely effective with it. Run that real quick because I want to show it before we close out. It is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, so this was a strategy that Nathan implemented and still running today, where he onboarded all of his first-party data, and then we pushed it to the trade desk to do activation. And so Nathan has his own in-house agency where they run the programmatic campaigns. But the interesting thing about this ad is this is at the ad exposure level. The next thing that consumer did after seeing that DGDG ad is they visited a marketplace. They didn't click through. It was 4 days later that they visited that marketplace website, and they stayed anonymous. Then that consumer went to Google My Business and clicked through, again, still anonymous. Back to the marketplace on April 12th, and then a DGDG CTV ad on April 12th and the 19th, and then marketplace visit, another video ad, 3 marketplace visits, another CTV ad, 2 more marketplace visits, finally a sale on June 11th.
Wow. That's kind of wild. No lead.
No lead.
All anonymous.
All anonymous.
Wow. So.
But they're a drive-by.
Yeah. Drive-by in the CRM, right?
So that's why it goes back to your CRM's garbage in, garbage out, right? That is marked probably as a drive-by.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah. Kudos. Hey, there's probably a lot of questions. I saw 4 more come in the app. If you have questions, make sure and grab these guys. They're all doing phenomenal stuff. You haven't even heard half of the stuff that DGDG and McGovern are doing, so if you want to tap them, if you want to get to know Clairvoy, make sure and do that. Connect with them. Thank you all for coming to this. Give them a round of applause.